don't think we divide polynomials. I think we avoid that one. But we're going to do a bunch of different things with polynomials. This is kind of leading us into the bigger pieces of the chapter. Here you go. Here you go. Brings us into the bigger part of the unit where we'll spend about a month in the next unit when we're talking about factoring polynomials, which is the big part kind of algebra. So we're going to do a lot of adding and subtracting. Not today so much, but yeah. Today we're going to start out with getting a definition. We're going to keep today, it's Friday. We took a test yesterday. We had a good week. The test was really good for the most part. Nicely done on that test. It's already entered into the grade book, so you should be able to see it in there. I won't hand them back until everybody's done, but you can go ahead and see your grade in there. And again, for the most part, nicely done. A lot of you helped your grades out quite a bit, which is what we wanted to see. So because of those things, we're not going to cover all of these notes today. We're going to talk about polynomial. We're going to talk about degrees today and how we go about classifying them. We'll start talking about what we call standard form. We'll leave that part to Monday. And we'll talk about adding on Monday then as well. So because we need to know vocabulary, we're going to kind of start out with the vocabulary piece of this and what exactly a polynomial is. So by definition, I want to make sure that we give you the same definition. Okay? A or an. A polynomial, okay, so is an expression. So in your notes, we're going to put expression. Okay, so an expression is a series of things, is what an expression is. Consisting of many terms. Okay. So it's an expression consisting of many terms. So an example of a polynomial, it just might be one term. 6 is considered to be a term. Okay. It might be something like negative 2x. Those are what we call monomial because they're singular. We'll talk about that in a little bit more in a minute, but those are what we call monomials. It can be a series of terms that are added together. So if we add two monomials together and have something like 7p plus 1. It's called a binomial because it has two terms, but it's considered in the big realm of things to be a polynomial. If you string three terms together, like v squared plus 2v plus 5, it's a polynomial. It's the sum of three terms. Each individual piece makes what we call a trinomial, three terms. Okay, and it can do other things. I mean, you can change the power to a 3. You can make it a subtraction of 8. Again, those are just all examples of polynomials. It's an expression consisting of terms. It can be from one term to 200 terms or more, but it's really the adding or subtracting to them. So that's a polynomial in general, and that's what we're going to study really this whole chapter. Is how to add these things together. How do I take negative 2x times 7p plus 1? That's something that we're going to learn how to do. You can find out you really can't, but we can put plus symbols between them. We're going to learn how to multiply them. You'll be able to multiply those terms together. Okay? So that's kind of the big, broad picture of what they are. Now, a degree. So in a polynomial that has only one variable. So when we're talking about degree in a polynomial that has only one variable, the degree of the polynomial is equal to its highest exponent. So in a polynomial that has only one variable, the degree of that polynomial is equal to the highest exponent. So if I have a polynomial, let's say I have x squared. One variable means that it only has one letter. Okay? The degree of this polynomial with one letter is equal to the highest exponent. So the highest exponent that this one has is 2. So we would say that this is a second degree polynomial. Okay? If we have a series of things, say I have something like x cubed plus x squared plus 1. That's a polynomial. The largest degree is 3. So we say this is a third degree polynomial. We don't care about the other ones. It makes no difference if it only has one variable. So like this one here, this is a second degree polynomial because the highest exponent is a 2. This last one right here, that's a third degree polynomial because the a variable has an exponent of 3. Okay. So now that we kind of can see what those degrees are, we're going to give them terms. Okay, so if it has a degree that's 0, so an example of a degree to 0 would be something like, and this needs to go into your notes, x to the 0 power. It has a name, and we want to be able to name them. Or if it's something like maybe not x to the 0, maybe it's something like 3. There's no degree to it. Okay. This is called a constant. It's a number. Okay. X to the 0 power is really 1. We talked about that when we were talking about exponents in the last unit. But that's called a constant. If it's a first degree, so say something like I have x plus 2. Here's my variable. Its degree is 1. It's not written there, but understand if it's not written there, there's understood to be a 1 there. If it's a first degree polynomial, we say that it's linear. So that's the terminology that we're going to use. And one of the things we're going to do today is name them. So we need to know the different names of these different degrees. If it's a second degree polynomial, something like x squared plus 2. My variable risen to the second power. This is called a quadratic. So anything to the second power is quadratic. This is a lot of algebra 2. We deal with a lot of quadratics in algebra 2. And we will in here in about a couple weeks. Third degree. So something like x cubed plus 2. We call this cubic. And these are the terms that you'll hear me say. Say we have a linear equation, we have a quadratic equation, we have a cubic equation. And you need to understand that when I say a cubic equation, that means my largest exponent is 3. If the largest exponent is 4, so x to the 4th plus 2, we say that that is quartic. We call that quartic. So we name them by degrees. So we can name polynomials by degrees as constants, linear, if it's to the first. If it's to the second, it's quadratic. If it's to the third, it's cubic. If it's to the fourth, it's quartic. So if we go up to our examples up above, and we just want to name it by its degree, this one, it's just a number. Anytime it's a number, we call it a constant. The second one, negative 2 to the x. There's understood to be a 1 there. So this one we would say is linear. If we look at 7p plus 1, our variable p is to the first power. So again, we're going to say that that's linear. The third one, v squared. It's squared, so our power is 2, so we say that's quadratic. And the third one's to a cube, so we would say that this is cubic, because it's to the third power. Okay, so that's how we name polynomials by degrees. We also name them by the number of terms that they had. And if you noticed when I was talking earlier, I said monomial, I said binomial, I said trinomial. I said those different things. Well, if it has 0 terms, yeah, there's nothing there. So does it make sense for something to have 0 terms? No. So that's an error in me writing my notes. You're not going to have number of terms 0. Okay. If there's one term, if there's only one term, like 6 or negative 2x, so we'll use negative 2x as our example. That has only one term. We call it monomial. We call it a monomial. If it has 2 terms, like negative 2x plus 1, there's my first term, there's my second term. 2 terms is binomial. Bi means 2, so we have binomial if there are 2 terms. If there are 3 terms, kind of scratch out that plus sign, you don't need that plus sign there. If there are 3 terms, like negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 7, we call it a trinomial. Like a triangle has 3 sides. One with 3 terms is considered to be a trinomial. If it has more than that, if it has 4 terms, this one's not on here, so, but we need to add it. If you have something like x cubed plus 3x squared minus x minus 1, anything more than 4 terms, we're just going to call it a polynomial. They're all polynomials, technically. But if it has more than 4 terms, so that would be the 4 plus. I messed up my notes for you guys. So scratch out that plus. But 4 plus, we just call it a polynomial. Okay. So what we want to be able to do then is we want to be able to name anything that I give you, any polynomial that I give you. We want to be able to name it as both its degrees and by its number of terms. Okay, so that's the next chart that we're looking at right here. On the left-hand side, or the directions say classify each polynomial by its degree and by its number of terms. So I've got a bunch of different polynomials. Okay. The first thing we're always going to name it by is we're going to name it by its degree. Okay. So if we look at 6, 6 is just a number. Okay, so technically it is 0 degrees. And it has no degrees. How many terms are there? 1. So we've got no degrees and 1 term. So if we look up at our chart from above, that you're going to have this for your test, we would call this a constant monomial. So we just kind of look up here, find the number of degrees, it was 0. It's called a constant. Number of terms, monomial. So how do we classify that? We classify this as a constant monomial. Negative 2x. Negative 2x, remember that that's to the first power. So what degree is it? 1. How many terms does it have?
2.
Now, but that's a great example of of a misconception that happens. And I didn't answer it earlier. Terms are individual terms that are put together by an addition sign or a subtraction sign. If they're right beside each other, that's just one term. Okay? So we say terms if they're connected with a plus or a minus. So because there's no plus or minus signs in here, this only has one term. Okay, but I didn't clarify that very well. Okay, so if we go up top, it has a degree of 1, so that's linear. One term is monomial. So when we classify it, we call it a linear monomial. And we're done. If we look at the next one, 7p plus 1. Find your variable. Our variable is p. What degree is that? 1. So our degree is 1. There's a plus sign. So how many terms do we have? 2. So we go up to our list. Degree is 2. I'm sorry, degree is 1. So that's linear. 2 terms, binomial. So that's what we call it. We call it a linear binomial. And we're done. Okay, so now let's roll through the degrees of each of them. Okay, go ahead and write what you think the degree of this one is. We're not going to just write the degree that you think this one is. Okay, go to the next one down. What degree is that one? So v squared plus 2v plus 5, what degree is that? 4a to the third minus 8, what degree is that? And 4m to the fourth minus blah, blah, blah. What degree is that? Okay, so v squared, so that is a second degree is what you should have. That's our biggest exponent. What's our biggest exponent in 4a to the third minus 8? What's our biggest exponent? 3. Again, remember the exponents are our powers. And the last one, what's our biggest one? We've got lots of them in this one, but what's our biggest one? 4. Okay? Make sure you're doing the exponents, not the numbers. All right, now let's talk about terms. List down the number of terms that each of them have. Okay, so 3, 2, and 3, 2, and 4. We're going to be done in like a minute and a half. Okay? Nope, you're fine. I get it. It's been a long week.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So now we're going to classify them. So we've got a second degree with 3 terms. Second degree is quadratic. 3 terms is trinomial. So this is a quadratic trinomial. Okay. Go ahead and do the last 2. Go ahead and classify those last 2 by the degree and then by number of terms. So you can look up once you get those done, check those answers, see how you did. That makes sense? So we've got 4a to the third minus 8 is a cubic. 3 terms is cubic. I'm sorry, third degree is cubic. 2 terms is binomial, so cubic binomial. 4 and 4, Wortic polynomial. So that's the only part of the assignment that I'm going to want you to do today.